We are streaming to YouTube. We are ready when you are.
Okay. I'll call to order this work session of the Seward City Council. It's Monday, October 28th, 2024. It's 5:30. And we are working still on our fiscal year 2025-26 budget. And we have presentations and such from Harbor and Electric tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to lead us through this.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. We are excited for the final work session of our 2025-2026 budget cycle. As always, I'd like to start with a big thank you to all of the community who has been really engaged and informed and communicative throughout this process. We have two exciting presentations tonight, the Harbor Enterprise Fund and the Electric Enterprise Fund. I'm going to start with Tony Szyminski, the Harbor Master, and invite him up to talk through his FY 25-26 budget.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, if you just lead us through and pause for questions from us, and then I can get audience questions too. We'll get through the harbor and then we'll go on to electric.
Sounds good, Madam Mayor. I was going to leave it with, I guess, very similar. I thought we'd start off with Harbor General, 11,000, 2,000.
Okay.
And then just work up numerically from there. In this fund, do you guys have any questions right off the bat?
And so that would be page 4.
Oh, page 4?
Oh,
Yeah.
looking at page
I thought we were page
2. We're all looking at page 2,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm always amazed at how much we bring in on showers. Any questions from council? Councilmember Fitch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I noticed in the 2024 budget down there in the expenditure, the overtime is, the past couple of years has been 5,000, and now it's doubling to 10,000 for 2025 and 2026.
6001, is that what you're?
Sure, in 2023, we had 15,000. I think we split the difference between 22 and 23.
Is that what you're looking at?
Well, the 2024 budget for that was 5,075, and the 2025 and 26 budget are 10,000. I mean, why does it seem the overtime cost is doubling?
And that will change year over year. And again, I would look back to 22 and 23. You know, one year is 6,000, the next year is 15,000. It would depend on snow removal, lifts going over, and the like.
So it's just
And that does also take into consideration the wage study increase as well. So we're finding the nice middle between 22 and 23, and then adding a bit more to increase the wages.
Okay. Anything else from council? I know we're just moving through this. Yes, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you.
He doesn't even have to raise his hand, he just looks at me now.
Page 4, non-personnel costs, 7,009 contracted services. I see that we budgeted 90K this year, but I see an increase for 2025, 2026, and, I do see an X there, but maybe you
Yes,
can.
there's an X.
Yep, great question there, Randy. Sorry, Councilmember Wells. I increased that budget. We have our janitorial contract coming up this year,
The what?
the janitorial contract.
Oh, yeah.
And just to give a little wiggle room on that, I used.
Makes good sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else? Okay, you wanna?
Okay, not seeing other questions. Let's move on to page 6, 2001.
Whoa. Okay, I have a question when I first saw this. What is the internal cost allocation? And can you explain anything about that? It doesn't seem outrageous, but what is that? It's, I'm sorry, 7325.
And I might have to ask for some clarification from Subi on that.
On this page? Internal cost allocation is not the app. Oh, the note fell off. Uh-oh. Sorry, I said that. Give me 1 second. We wrote out a really nice note explaining that, and it's disappeared from the spreadsheet.
Sorry.
In typical spreadsheet fashion.
But I also,
Yeah, I think it fell
I
off.
also make a note in the SNCC.
Because we have that one in SMIC as well. But Suzie, can you, do you remember what the?
So those costs are internal costs associated with the operation of the harbor. Those are in base of revenue and expenditure number. And those, it's not here, huh? Can we get back on that one?
Yeah, give us a moment to find that and we'll get back to you on that answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll just go ahead. We'll come back to that. I'm sorry about
Yeah.
disrupting. here.
Great question.
Sounds good. Not seeing any questions. Any more questions following that? Want to move to page 7 for harbor floats?
Yes, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Page 7, line item 5153, fuel pumping fees. Can you explain what the fuel pumping fee is and why in 2022 it's 49,000, 23, 57,000, but we're forecasting it to drop down? In
The fuel pumping fee is the wharfage charge paid to from Shoreside Petroleum. Any fuel that crosses the dock.
Okay. But we're forecasting that fee to decrease? That revenue stream to
On-
decrease, I should say.
For the floats on 5, sorry, which line item were you referring
Line
to?
item 5153.
So fuel pumping fee. So we were allocating that based off of our revenue from this year, which was at the end of June 30th. So yes, good catch. We should actually increase that by an additional $10,000 and catch that because of that allocation was not through until the end of the year. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Others? Just, okay, we can go ahead, I guess. Watching for questions.
Any other questions for that fund?
Doesn't look like it.
We can move to page 8, 2004, and that's for the 50-ton travel lift. For this one, the big one is going to be under 7216. We have some repairs needed
But this is,
for this following year. And then also inspection for 7023 on that machine.
Okay.
Well, I do have a question then on the inspection fee. Thank you for pointing that out. So I see we budgeted 1,500 for 2024, but we're forecasting 6,000 for 2026. Is that,
Little light for 1500 for that inspection.
it was light?
Yeah.
I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Kreitz.
The motor, I think it's 8104 motor pool rent. it looks like there's a decrease on the 25 and 26 compared to the previous year. Well, 24 is 32,000, 22 is 32, 23 is 32.
Good catch. And I don't have an explanation on that, but I can look into that on that sheet.
They aged out of the. So those are vehicles or equipment aging out of their useful life, so the rent payment can go down.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Like when they get to that depreciation level.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Page 9, Fund 2005. The large ask on this one will be for remote metering.
For what?
Remote metering.
What number is
upgrading
that?
Pedestals. That will be fund number 7217.
Do you want to explain what remote metering is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very similar to what the electric department is looking at doing. We'll be able to remotely read meters
Oh,
on the floats. We currently have a couple floats that have that capability and would like to upgrade all the pedestals to that. And then hopefully the direction we're looking is to allow us to capture any meters that fail in a more timely fashion to capture that loss in revenue.
okay. I don't see any questions.
And that's all I have for you guys. Like to move to SMIC?
You ready for SMIC? We're ready for SMIC. So it's on page 12.
All right, we'll start here on page 14, under Fund 2500. Pretty straightforward. Oh,
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the first thing that pops up is on page 14, line item 5106, SMIC, 06 SMIC power sales. And we're budgeted for 90K in 2024. We did 155,000 in 2022, 37,000 in 2023, but then in 25 and 26, it's just 60K across the board.
Yep, just kept that number very conservative. That's, the ebb and flow over there is, we had some large projects along North Dock, which is why 22 was so high, which is probably an unrealistic number from previous years and past performance.
Okay?
And same thing as that facility gains popularity, that number should come in higher, but it's hard to forecast that now.
Because it's not based off of individual boats that are consistently there, it's based off of projects that come in. So when we see a large project come in, the power sales will increase, but we can't anticipate or plan for those large projects at all times, so we went with a straightforward 60,000 each year.
Yes, go
Thank you,
ahead.
Madam. So then, my question would be, for the follow-up is, in 2023, our actuals was 37,000 and some change. And how close in 2024 are we gonna come, do you think, to the budgeted 90K?
That's a great question. I can look into that and get you that figure.
But based off of our year-to-date actuals of being at about 20 in June, at the end of June, I would say that we were not as conservative with the $90,000 in previous budget cycles. So this one is kind of correcting for that and bringing that back down to a more realistic number.
So then my final follow-up would be, do you, excuse me, do you still believe that that 60,000 is a conservative projection when currently we're at 20 for this year?
Might be a little, might be a little high, but again, for next year, I don't have that crystal ball, and it only takes, a handful of vessels to change that whole,
Okay,
just to shift that over there.
thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to predict.
Very.
Councilmember Kreis.
I have two. First one is 6201 retirement benefits. I'm assuming that it's less expenditure because you've had some long-term employees retiring, is that correct?
Yes, so in 6201, we had to preemptively plan for a retirement last year, so that's why it jumped in 2024. It did not go back down to that level in 2025 and 2026 because we are continuing to plan for some retirements in there as well.
And then the other one is 7100. Can you explain the difference in the, because on the 24 budget it's 284,850, but then it goes down to 45,000.
Sorry,
7100.
7100.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
You got that one, Tony?
Sully may have to clarify.
Okay.
I believe we coded those differently and combined two funds.
Yeah. So in the past, we had those separated into two accounts and combined them into one to be more consistent. And we also, it corresponds with some of the power sales as well, so being more realistic in what we expect in those line items.
Anything else? Okay.
Okay, moving to page 16. No major changes.
I just have
Councilmember Kreis.
a question in regards to 5,000, no revenue proposed for land rents and leases.
For page 16 in the basement, no, we were not, we did not, I think we sold a piece of that property. I believe, right? In the basin?
We, again, I believe we combined land rents and leases to 2,500.
Oh, yeah, that's the answer. Sorry, Tony had the answer.
Any other questions? I see no questions.
Okay, moving to page 17, 2504. And again, just like the 50-ton lift, we're expecting to see a couple major repairs on that machine as well after our inspection from last year. And that would fall under 7216.
Okay,
No questions from that?
I guess so. No,
Okay.
that's it. Do we have an answer to my question?
Yes. Do you want to explain it? Yeah, go for it.
So what line is it? Harbor
Back in
allocated
time,
costs?
yeah, the harbor allocated costs.
So those are indirect costs associated with the harbor and it's calculating in base of revenue, increased by CPI for each of both of the years, is what I have for.
So it's the administrative fee
For the harbor.
for the harbor. So it's the so the indirect cost of the administrative fee for the harbor, and it doesn't equal the full one in our general fund because we add each one up from each department. So it's based off of the revenue each year, and then it pays for the indirect costs that are administrative and things like that cover for the harbor.
Okay.
Yeah. But we just wanted to clarify how it was calculated, and it's calculated based off of revenue with an additional CPI.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Stay for a second, just in case someone in the audience stay. Is there anyone in the audience with questions or comments about the Harbor Enterprise Fund? I know why the rest of you are here, but I thought I had to ask. Yeah,
Well, I think
Tom.
after, I don't know, are you going to address the dock fee bond payments? Is that, I didn't find that anywhere.
Yeah.
I believe that's in a future discussion.
Oh,
Yeah, so those bond payments will expire at the end of 2026. So then we'll be able to make that discussion and the decision about the continuation of those fees and those bond when that comes up at the end of those bond payments. So currently, the harbor passenger vessel fee goes towards paying the bond payments. And then as we get closer to the expiration of those bond payments, we'll be able to readjust and look at that.
but the income
Mm-hmm.
is far exceeding anyone's expectation of those. And so
And so we've been, mhm.
Harbor will have received by June of next year
Mm-hmm.
enough to pay off the remainder of the bonds. So even though they don't expire until 2026, I personally would like to see us address that issue because, of course, all of the previous councils have committed that once the bonds are paid off, which they should be, like, say, in June or July of next year, that bond fee, or the dock fee would sunset. And it's always been set up as a public-private relationship, and I'd just like to encourage us sooner rather than later to have that discussion between the users who are paying it and the harbor. So, because we're really, really close
Yeah.
to having it paid off.
Okay.
Yep, so we should have that paid off, like Tom said, by the middle of this year, or next year now. I'm only thinking in 2025. So once we can see the final numbers from this summer that came through and how paying that off, if there would be any sort of penalties and things like that, which I hadn't done the full research into that yet, we'll have a discussion and a work session about moving forward with that with the private-public partnership.
Thank you.
Probably for before the summer season picks up too, so maybe like March or April of 2025.
Right before. Is that what you were
Thank
going to
you.
say?
That's exactly what I was.
If you would like to direct administration to plan that, that would be a
We
good
would like
opportunity.
that.
Okay.
I think
I will take that direction from council. Thank you.
they have been directed.
Thank you.
Anything else from the audience? Okay, thank you. Now you may leave, Tony.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Okay, Madam City Manager.
Great. Next up, I'm going to invite Brian Hickey to step up to discuss the electric department budget. And I will also ask the city clerk to turn on his slideshow. And Brian has a wonderful PowerPoint to go along with our budget discussions tonight. Do you have the clicker?
I don't have a clicker.
There it is.
Right there, Brian.
Thanks.
So I'll walk through this PowerPoint. It's only 5 or 6 slides. It shouldn't take very long. It's kind of a high-level summary of the budget. I hope you'll give me a little bit slacker because I've never worked under this particular accounting system. It's not a traditional utility accounting system, so there's been a little bit of a learning curve for me going through this. But where do I point? Somewhere else? Oh, there it went.
Directly at Jody.
So Taylor and I put the budget together, and the team over there, I really appreciate all the help I got from all of the folks. You know, obviously, perhaps not obviously, but we start with safety, reliability, resilience, and we move on to efficiency. That's sort of what you'd call prudent utility practice. We have several programs that we're putting in place this year that hopefully to improve the utility in all of those areas, and the budgets that we've supplied here will help us accomplish those. Citywide, the budget guidance we used was for 2024 numbers to increase them by 3% for 2025 and 1.6% for 2026. I wasn't here or involved in the preparation of the 2023, 2024 budget. There was some significant modifications to that budget made at the mid-cycle budget adjustment. And so when I went through line item by line item, the June 30th cost to date just didn't bear out what the 24 budget was in some cases. And when that occurred, I went back and took 23 actuals multiplied them by 3% to get them to 24, 3% again to get them to 25. And so you'll see a lot of the numbers in there are based on 23 actuals, just because it didn't feel like we were going there with what had been finalized in the 24 budget. So, and I really don't know anything about why. I can see that someone had plans and was trying to do stuff, but I can't really speculate on what those folks were doing back then. So that's the final bullet on this slide. This is a little bit hard to see, but it's sort of a high-level summary. I tried to get as much on the page as I could.
Can I ask is that in the packet?
It is, it's a summary of the packet, yeah.
But, I mean, this exact page?
Not this exact page, no.
Not that exact page. I took some of it and just so we can kind of walk through and explain it. And I know it's hard to see because it's hard for me to see it. So basically, as we walk through at a high level the various funds, if you start with debt service, you can see that that goes up by about 21%. That's because we have the infrastructure projects. The bond on the infrastructure projects is now in place. General operations, we're at about 89% there. We actually dropped that particular number, and that primarily is due to moving where we found 24 numbers that just didn't seem accurate. The primary driver was that where we found 24 numbers that didn't seem accurate, so we went back to 23 and brought them forward in time. If you go to 3001, the administrative fund, that's also down. Part of that is because we moved the two positions, which were the general manager and the operations manager are moved out of administration, and they're actually covered under contract services in the operations side through the contract with MEA. So that's why you see that particular line item coming down. Some things did go up. We also, under general operations, the administrative fee from that we pay into the city was reduced by about $50,000 to recognize moving the clerk and the software for North Star and stuff over and doing electric billing out of the electric department. So those all come together to about that 91% total. Transmission operations and distribution operations are, as you will see, are up significantly. Transmission operations, for some reason in '24, there was no budget for right-of-way clearing. And so we budgeted $400,000 for right-of-way clearing, and that brought you up by about 617% in that area. In distribution operations, we added $200,000 for right-of-way clearing, but we also cut a fair amount of the '24 budget, and so we ended up at about $71,000 over in that particular area. Let's see if I can see that. Wholesale power costs. I think you're aware of the Chugach rate case, and if you're not, what's happened recently within the last few days, the RCA issued, Chugach submitted their I'm trying to think of the best term for it. They were ordered by the commission to redo their cost allocation manual. That cost allocation manual was submitted to the commission a couple weeks ago. A tentative order has come out by the commission, and we have 2 weeks as interveners to review that and make sure that we agree with how costs were allocated. The net result of that is that there will be a 10.12% increase on base rates alone. So when you, so it's 10.12. In December or November of 2023, Chugach applied for an interim refundable rate of 10.55%. So because they approved 10.12, the city will get about a $16,000 credit on that refundable rate that was in place from, I think, November 23 through the date of this order. And then, so we'll end up at about 10.12% increase in rates, and that 10.12% increase on total rates equals about 5.29%. So, rates are made up of base rates and cost of power. So if cost of power were to stay flat, if we didn't have a copay increase, which may or may not happen, but we don't know that until, as time goes on, then that total rate increase applied to the total, that 10.12 applied to the total rate increase, or the total rate, is about 5.29%, or I'm sorry, it's about about 5.29%. So that's sort of where we're at with wholesale power costs. You can see that we budget in there, I think 6,535. I can't actually read it from here, I'm going from memory there.
Correct.
6,535. If you take the 2023 actuals and you move them forward, we're within $50,000. That's actually 1.03 times that's the 6%, the 1.03 times the 0.03 on the 23 actuals, and that gets us within about 50,000 of what the actual rate increase will be. And I think there will be some fluctuation in the cost of power. And so with that, the last item we have on there is the PILT, the 1286146, which is a payment in lieu of taxes. I think that's based on 8% of our gross revenue.
Correct. And so the PILT and the administrative fees too that we're showcasing tonight actually differ from the ones that we showed in the general fund earlier, because as we've stated since the start, this is a collaborative process as we move forward and figure out what is best for the next budget cycle. So we were actually able to decrease those to be able to decrease the revenue to propose decreasing the rates. So those will be different than the ones that we saw at the beginning, but in the final budget that we present at the November 12th meeting, it'll all line up. Final draft budget.
So just to give you an idea, when Taylor and I have kind of walked through what's going on here at Seward and looking at it from our experience, this was a list of probably the top 10 or 12 things that we think need to be tackled. With this budget, we're funded through 7B, that's the green lines. What was not, we couldn't squeeze into this budget, given we have the 2-cent rate decrease for the winter months. What we couldn't squeeze into that budget is what you see below that. I'll just kind of walk through these briefly. Right-of-way clearing, I talked a little bit about that. I mean, it's a safety and a reliability issue, and it's really the number one thing you got to do at a utility. You got to keep your right-of-ways cleared. And that has to happen for a lot of reasons. Fires, people getting hurt on four-wheelers that hit trees. There's just so many reasons you want to do that. Substation spraying, that's getting the weeds down in the substation. That's a critical safety issue for people who are in the substations due to what they call step and touch potentials. And so those have to be taken out. I could bore you with all the details, but you got to spray your subs. You got to keep the weeds out. It should look like a gravel pad in there. Overstory integrated vegetation management, we have some software funding in both 25 and 26 for that. That's going to help us. That's an organization that we intend to contract with if the budget's approved to. They use high-resolution satellite data in rainfall and temperatures for your specific area to evaluate the actual vegetation overgrowth and allow you to move your people to the places where it really needs to be cut, not just just spend a lot of money cutting things that don't need to be cut. So we'll be trying to integrate that. We have some training for both the line crews, the operators, and the administrative folks. I have a study in there. I think we really, as a utility, need to look at the generators at Fort Raymond and understand what's the future of those generators. They're very old, from the 1970s. We had to round on them for 36 hours last weekend. And I think you probably really need to go through and as a community look at that, because when the line's out of service, and in the future, with the current situation in Cook Inlet natural gas, and the fact that we're on an interruptible rate from Chugach and would be in the future, I would expect you'll see more times when we're asked to get off the system, which means those generators are going to become much more important to keeping the lights on here. And I don't think 3 days on them is really, that may become much more common than it's been in the past. And so I have a study in there to look at. We need to bring somebody in and say, let's go through these generators, decide where are we at, and then we'll come back to you with that and we'll find out what the folks say. I've got some stuff in SCADA where I think we might be able to save some money when we test run our units, if we can predict when our peak is and shave our peak with that and cut demand costs. So we'll be looking at that. That involves collecting a little more data than we're collecting right now and then doing some statistical analysis. Because we run those generators every month. If we run them over peak, we could shave the peak and cut the demand charge. If we can do that, we'll have to look at how regular the peak is, and we need to do some analysis on that. I also have 2 projects in there to convert the utilities books to the uniform system of accounts. I think it's something you probably want to look at. We have to understand what would it take to do that, but it's very hard to merge Seward costs into the railbelt costs without doing that, because all utilities except munis use the uniform system of accounts. If you're anywhere in the country, you can, and most munis actually use them, but they're not required to by FERC. So we'll take a look at what that would take to actually get those books over there. And that sort of ties into some of the issues around the railbelt transmission organization and moving costs from our transmission system into the general pool and having them uplifted. And that's part of what came out of HB 307. That will be a statutory requirement. So we got some money in there to figure out what would it take to do that. And that's kind of the end of what we've done. I won't go into detail on the other ones, but we really should look at some sort of an integrated enterprise resource planning program. Like NISC is what small utilities use. Cordova and Copper Valley, Chugach uses it, MEA uses it. A cost-benefit analysis on advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, that's probably something that, as a community, you should look to moving towards. There are very few people who actually use AMR meters anymore, and very few people who actually read meters manually at all. So that's sort of something that, another place we should look at going forward. There's a typical program that you see at most utilities called worst performing feeders and undergrounding. And so that costs money to implement, but we haven't funded that yet. We're looking at a joint use audit to understand exactly how many communications attachments we have to our poles. We get to charge those folks for that, but we don't have real good records that we can find on how many we have actually attached. So that's something we need to take care of. Historical, and then the last one is scanning some of the files and getting them in electronic documents. I think that would be helpful. And the last one is the ERO, and I want to touch on that a little bit because that may come to pass towards the end of this year, that we're going to have to implement these reliability standards. It's another statutory requirement. And that is both electric reliability and cybersecurity standards. The ERO is working on them right now. I'm on a committee that's going through them. I think we'll probably have a package for the ERO board, maybe January. Now, once that's implemented, you have 12 months by statute, by regulation, you have 12 months to actually implement the effort required. But it may drag out. They don't have a CEO yet, and so there's a lot of things going on at the ERO. So I didn't put it in the budget, I didn't move it to the top, but we may have to make an adjustment when we get to the 24 mid-cycle budget adjustment. So that's sort of a summary, and I could stop here. I don't have much more, but I could take questions, or we can go to details.
Yeah, why don't you pause for a minute?
Oh, I didn't get you the motor pool things. I don't know if that's important to you, but sorry. I forgot about these.
Sure.
Yeah, we got 3 vehicles that we're looking to replace. There's the old ambulance, which is the Chevy tool van. We need an extended cab pickup truck. And there's a small metering. It was the general manager's vehicle. I think it's in administration, but my thinking is to have that as our meter reading vehicle, because we need something for the meter reader to drive around that's not a big heavy pickup. It would be helpful to get that. And that is an existing vehicle that needs to be replaced. In fact, all 3 of those are. It says additions up there, but I didn't really mean it to. The 2 tracked ATVs for $36,000, those are replacements for existing ATVs. And then the dump trailer is actually a new item. So sorry about that's a little bit misleading. And then I already went through the Chugach power costs, so we don't have to do that. And that's, now we'll go to questions.
Just reading your conclusion here.
Oh, yeah. So tell them what you tell them again, then tell them again. It's basically saying we're going to try to be more safe, more reliable, more resilient, more efficient. And that's going to position the utility better for the future.
Okay, thank you for that. Council, questions?
So I would like to highlight, within there is a 2-cent decrease planned for the winter months, just to reiterate that, bearing the lead a little bit, but starting in the October of 2025. So we would be able to readjust that and bring those rates down in 2025. Right? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just there, right?
No council questions. I'm going to ask the audience if they have input at this point, but you might, I don't know, you may be responding. So if you want to, you can either come up or talk loud from the back.
I don't need to come up.
Okay.
Hi, Brian.
We only worked together for like about 30 years.
It would be good if you said your name just for the people that
I
can't.
live outside the city.
Thank you.
But I was born and raised here. And Brian and I worked together for 15 years. Did they mention power factor of any of the larger customers here? They published data earlier last year that showed some customers had a power factor that was horrendous. JAG, the school, there's several others. Has there been anything looked at on improving the power factor?
I have not, but I'll write it down. Actually, someone did mention that to me early on, like when I first got here. I remember somebody saying that. I haven't done anything about that.
So they published that Seward's overall losses were as high as 9% in the last few years. I think I saw some data that showed that there was a small improvement in that. The 9% is way out of line, and the only thing we could come up with was on the distribution system, there's power factor in some of the larger customers. So
I'll definitely look at that. One of in the SCADA improvements and additions, right now our metering doesn't agree with the chew gauges. And so part of what I need to do is go through and understand what they're metering at 952 at the breaker at Dave's Creek. So that may shed some light on that when we actually get into it, but I'll definitely
it would be
look
a
at it.
savings for the entire city if we could get
Absolutely.
those few customers, and I think it is in there, when they sign up for power, they say they will control the power factor, and I don't think they have.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Thank you. Thanks.
The relationship between voltage and current in design, it's kind of complicated.
So there was a question from the, could you define for the people what power factor means?
Sure.
Let's
So
just
power
ask you.
factor is so there are really simple. Reactive power is the foam on the beer, and real power is the beer. And you can't have the beer without the foam, but nobody wants the foam. That's what they teach you in electrical engineering. That's what they teach you in the. So reactive power, the ratio of reactive power to real power is the power factor, and the closer that is to 1, the less foam there is on the beer. And so you really like to have your beer with no foam, but you still want it to fizz. And so you can't, the beer doesn't fizz if there's no, that's my,
Thank you.
I could make it more complicated, but.
No, yeah, that's the way I taught chemistry, actually. Other audience, questions, comments? We've got a bunch of you out there.
I do have one more question.
Sure, Kevin.
I hate to dominate this, but the upgrade to 115, I just sent you an email, you probably didn't have time to
No, I
respond.
responded to it.
Oh, you did, I
Yeah.
didn't see it.
Yeah.
But, so I understand the infrastructure's all in place?
It's not.
It's not.
Yeah, so where we're at is, we still have to convert Lawing, Spring Creek. First, we have to complete Nash Road Phase 2, which is from Sawmill Creek to the Old Seward Highway, or to the Seward Highway. And then we have to cut over Lawing and then cut over Spring Creek. And we're looking right now, it's probably a cut over in the first quarter of 26. We have a lot of the equipment, but the designs are complete. We got the long lead items like transformers and three-way switches and all that. Fort Raymond is actually
Done, the transformers are installed, and all they have to do is swap it over from
Yep.
69.
Yeah, the breakers are in.
Okay.
Yeah, Carol,
Follow up to that question.
just speak really loud if you're going to stay back there.
Carol Shaver-Meyer inside the city. Is there the funding in place, the budget in place for doing that work to get to the point of cutover in 2026?
No, and our intention is to do a workshop soon
Yep.
to cover that side of things. But it is not, we're at about what was approved in the initial, but I can't remember, it's $13 or $14 million, that's where we're at right now, which was the bond plus the Nerf and
Here in the peanut gallery, we're trying to understand where that whole thing's at.
Yeah.
Because we've not received any kind of real, and I hope what's coming up will provide that information to us to tell us exactly what's been done, what still needs to be done, and what's the cost, what's the plan to meet that cost.
Actually, we did do a budget, we did do a workshop May 29th of this summer on that, to bring up to speed on where we were. But what we haven't done is what we're going to do going forward in these future workshops.
And so we wanted to reevaluate and take a
Yeah.
pause too, to just make sure that we were on the right track and that everything that we had accomplished was going to line up with what we wanted to accomplish and then line up with the funding mechanisms. So once we get through this budget cycle, and I hate to keep putting work sessions off till after January 1, but in early January and February, we're going to reevaluate and have a work session on the infrastructure planning and budgeting for that. Yeah.
Follow up to that question, then, your post 25, 26 budget includes, I think, $1.3 million, $1.35 million for, I guess, funding that total of $7 million over 2 years for funding, I assume, what we're talking about.
There's nothing on the capital side in here other than the work orders for, I think, 250 million. This is all spent. There's depreciation on existing assets, but there's nothing on the capital side.
I guess we want to know what that number is, what is.
Do you have a line item
Yeah.
for the number that you're referring to?
Yeah, it talks about other sources of cash under the cash flow, projected budget statement. And I don't have a line item number here, but.
Oh, the other sources, uses of cash? Okay.
Acquisition of $3.5 million a year.
Oh, so but that's not in the capital budget, that's in our revenue and expenses cash flow. So we aren't budgeting for that, but it is part of that, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's part of the internal planning for that, so we have that. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Suli, do you have anything to add while I catch my page?
That is a projected cash needed to finalize the project.
So that is based off of our previous amounts of what the projected cash needed to finalize the projects were. So we have that still in place planning for it, but it's not in the fiscal year budget at all. So that is a placeholder as we continue to move forward with figuring out what the final solution is.
So you're not, I guess, this is a follow-up.
Yeah.
So you're not proposing necessarily that that's going to come out of.
No, we're not proposing that that's coming, no.
No,
It could be.
This is-
bonded, it could be-
it's just a projection. It's just a projection, and if you see the available cash for operations, it's just a projection to say, hey, how much we have in cash, and this is the projection that it will take in off. If we say that we allocate 7 million during those 2 years, right, it will end up with a very low cash into the electric fund.
So it's a projection to anticipate that, but we are not saying that we are using that cash on hand to pay for the infrastructure project. We just wanted to be sure that it was marked in some way, shape, or form.
And the 7 million number is a number from some time ago, and we're trying to refine that.
Going back to your May presentation, I now recall some
Yep.
of that. And that was a number that they talked about there, what was going to be still needed to finish out the current capital project that we're talking
My recollection was the number then was 7.3 million.
about. Yes.
And so, but you also have looked at some ways to maybe optimize that and maybe spend some time figuring some things out, maybe we can bring that out.
And I understood there was an amount left in the bonds to possibly cover some of that.
At this point, we've utilized all of the bond funds.
But we do need to put a little effort into it.
Yeah.
We need to put some effort into it, come back to you and give you the whole story. That'd be the best thing.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yep, we do.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else out there at this point? Yeah, go ahead, Rhonda.
Yeah, Robin Hubbard, Insights News Limits. Is there the general fund transfers, the billing has gone over to the city, correct? So has there been a reduction in the general fund administrative fee?
Yes, we reduced the general fund administrative fee by 5%.
5%, yeah.
This year. And so that will be, that is evident in the general fund as well, and also a step towards us being able to reduce that general fund administrative fee over time even more and reduce the fee, the rates, part of that process.
I have the numbers, but I believe there was a $400,000 reduction in the general fund transfer, there was only an administrative fee decrease by $53,000, so there's a $347,000. Just wondering why.
So we reduced the PILT based off of revenue and based off of anticipated revenue, and then we reduced the general fund or the general administrative fee by 5% because that was the appropriate amount based off of what we removed from it. Because it also should have anticipated the 3%, 1.6% CPI increase, but instead we decreased it by 5% to bring that cost down to the ratepayers.
And then the last, the lawsuit that was brought forth, our presenter alluded to it. How much, what percentage was that, or what could that come out to?
So that's for our wholesale power purchasing from Chugach,
Right.
and that was 5.
Yeah, the total, on total rates, which includes base rates and COPA, the cost of power adjustment, is about 5.29, or it's about 0.5% on that. 5.29 cents. I gotta look at my papers here. It's about 5, sorry about this, I just did this before.
Per kilowatt hour, I'd rather talk.
Talking
numbers
kilowatt
rather than
hours.
Percentages.
So Chugach's rate on 2023 actuals was 11.14 cents per kilowatt hour. That's base rates and COPA. And with the current rate case, not including the 16,000 we get back, I didn't net that out. It really isn't.
$16,000?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a thing where there was they filed for a minimum refundable rate in November of 2023. That was at 10.55%, and they got 10.12, and so there's a refund due. But taking that off the equation, the rate from Chugach will be 11.73 cents, so 11.14 to 11.73 cents. And that represents a 5.27% increase across the whole rate base. Across the whole, both base rates and COPA. Am I making this too complicated?
I thought we were getting a credit. You said it increased.
Well, the rates are going to increase, but there is a $16,000 credit that's going to come back from 2023 until the date of this order, which was yesterday or the day before.
Because they temporarily increased to a not randomly chosen rate, but what Chugach wanted it to be. Yeah, they said, hey, we want to go up to this rate. So we paid that rate for a period of time. The RCA, the regulatory body, came back and said, oh no, you can only go this high of your rate, so we will get the difference of that rate spent over time returned to us.
Yeah, so,
But there will still be an increase in the rate.
Yeah, going forward, there will be a rate increase, and on your total energy supply divided, total cost of power divided by the energy supply comes out to about 5.27% increase.
Are we complete with the contract with Chugach now? Because I know you're in negotiations with them.
We're in negotiations.
Still.
What's that?
You better hurry.
We have an agreement that they'll extend it month by month going forward. So we're
Yep.
covered.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Kevin.
Are you allowed to say whether Matanuska or Homer put in bids for a wholesale power contract?
Yeah, we are. No.
They did not?
Nope.
Okay.
They did not.
No, that's
Okay, other,
I have just another question.
Daryl.
The transfers of the electric MERV, that's been zeroed out
Mhm.
with this budget based upon the winter rate, 2 cents. from other regions. So that's not, there's nothing being shown to be allocated in this budget.
No.
I just have a question with respect to the rate case. What fund bore the cost of the intervenor cost for the cities taking that on with regulators?
The electric department bore that cost.
Yeah, it was in the administrative, but we moved it, I'm sorry, it wasn't general operations, but this year we moved that fee to the electric administrative fund, which is
Does
$3,000.
anybody have that cost to date?
I don't,
Not off the top of our head.
I mean, it was, I think as of 6:30, it was like $45,000.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
But I think, we played the value of that intervener, where right off the bat, we'll receive about a $16,000 refund, and then over time, we'll see the difference between those two rates pan out for our ratepayers. So thought it was money well spent to be involved in that case.
Thank you.
I think it was about
Thanks for
40.
all the answers. Anyone else? Yes.
Christine Casagrande, Inside City Limits. I guess this is to the Director, Administration, and Council. I'm just wondering if anybody is currently in negotiations or speaking about selling our utility after October.
No, we have not been directed by council or have any conversations about selling the utility.
We haven't
At this
discussed
point.
it at all.
I guess, so that, and are council members having conversations or the Director?
We have not discussed
Nope.
it at all.
And at this point in time, we've planned for the contract to extend with MEA through 2026 to continue that. We have also, I discussed it in the wage study a little bit as well, but we're also looking into options to hire a full-time or electric department director and operations manager at the rate necessary in Alaska on the rail belt to do that. And so in 6 months or so, I'll probably bring that forward as well. But at this point in time, we haven't had any conversations, and I have not been directed by council to explore that at all. Yeah.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, bring it back to council. Any comments, questions? Administration, what you got? Anything else?
No, I would
Got
just,
half hour.
I would just like to thank both Brian and Suli and their teams. It was a lot of really great conversations as we navigated this budget, which can be a contentious one. So I really appreciate all of that expertise coming in, and I think after we nailed it down, there was a high fives all around of the collaboration that we experienced, and it was a really great budget process there. And a thank you to the community again. At this point, we will take all of this information from both the council and the community and the department heads, and at the prior to, but for the November 12th meeting, we will present the final draft budget. So there will be changes, but that's part of the public process. But we're really, really grateful for everybody for this journey.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a lot,
Appreciate it.
and thank you very much. So if there's nothing, I'm sorry.
Can I get out?
If there's nothing else, but yet there is, okay.
There was one question that was posed that I would like to answer about the retirement and benefits and everything in the personnel budget for the wage study. And so I would like to clarify that the $660,000 increase on wages includes all aspects of wages, including retirement, payroll expenses, etc. So that is all included and all encompassing in that amount, and benefits.
And that's throughout all departments?
Yep, throughout all departments.
That's not specific to what we're doing tonight, but
Yeah.
that was a public question. Oh, Rhonda.
Yeah, I also have a question on that wage study. You compared these different communities. Did you also within those numbers include their medical package and all their insurance?
We did it based off of wages.
Just wages?
Wages alone.
Medical
Yep.
benefits or anything in there?
Nope.
Okay, anything else? Okay, you ready? Okay, I'll adjourn this work session at 6:29 and remind everyone we have a regular meeting at 7. So we got a half hour.